Hiya! It's JelliTops here! I figured for this JelliDraws series I'd try something new. Just wanted to shake up my interface a little bit, you know? That's the fun thing about new content creators, right? You get to see all sorts of new things that I try. So hopefully this works out. I drew 3 whole new assets for this. Got this new pencil, my magical girl hat, and of course this very nice box. Box that I will be using to showcase my art. Let me know what you think if you want. This is a lot less scripted than my usual work, so forgive me if I'm a little scatterbrained. I'm trying my best. So after I released Project Cheshire, I knew I wanted to walk you through how I designed him. He was honestly such a fun character to make and even design and rig, even if it was a little tricky. So without further ado, let's get drawing! As you can see, everything started actually with that little silhouette in the top corner of this image. From what I've learned about character design, strong silhouettes give way to very effective designs. And by effective, I usually mean that it's a bit more memorable and easy to stand out. The same is obviously applied to VTuber designs. So I sat down and thought, how cool would it be for there to be like a Wonderland Cheshire Cat type character? Now, the world of VTubing is so massive that there might actually be one out there already that I have no idea about. So do forgive me if there's already a Cheshire Cat design out there. This just ended up being my spin on it. So that silhouette in the top corner, as I mentioned, is how I started. I thought it would be super cool for this sort of catboy type character to have a really long tail. And as you can see, at first, I didn't really think about making it also a cat. That kind of came in the later stages. To be honest, I just doodled some eyes and a cat mouth on the very end, and I was like, what if this was like Cat Dog? If you remember Cat Dog, W. Or even like a Wobbuffet situation where the actual person is hiding behind the facade of his tail also being a creature. So that's when this dizzy little cat also came into the picture. At first I was like, how on earth am I gonna make that work in Live 2D? Especially since VTuber designs benefit from being at least a little bit smaller in the silhouette so that they're easier to fit in the corner or anywhere else during a collaboration. But I figured since I had just learned how to do toggles, that it could just be switched off. And that's when I decided I wanted to design and rig this as a Live 2D model. Let's see how that turned out. So here is the time-lapse of the actual sketch that I would use to render the Live 2D model. As any Live 2D artist will tell you, the symmetry tool is your best friend. This is because Live 2D often reflects parts, so that it makes it a lot less work for the artist to have to rig. But as you can see, there's actually a lot of asymmetry in Project Cheshire's design. Asymmetry in character design usually means that it's more engaging to look at least that's what I've learned. So I tried to implement that obviously in his hair, in the sleeves, and in his pants. And of course, the tail actually breaks up a lot of the silhouette as well. I just made some minor adjustments to his vest and his shirt, and that is quite literally it. And now we start rendering. You're going to notice that in the rendering process, I refine a lot of his design. If I were to show you the JelliTops sketch, I actually end up looking a whole lot different when I go to render. That's usually what the rendering process is like though. I think you can mostly see these cleanups in the face here. His eye ends up looking just a bit more mischievous. I kind of accentuate that eyelash. And I made that spiral in the iris a bit more ovalish, kind of like a cat eye. Something else you'll notice in the base sketch is that it's a lot rounder, but I ended up narrowing it out just to make him look a bit older. And as you can see, I made sure to clean up all of the spirals in his design. It's a very important motif in his design. Along with being Cheshire themed, I also gave him a bit of a void theme too. I also decided to give him a spiral inside of his mouth, kind of like those old cartoons. And his tongue is green. I like different colored tongues apparently. And now onto the torso. I stuck to a pretty basic theme for his outfit. It's giving bellhop, showman, something like that. I just wanted to invoke a classic feeling since he's based on zany cartoons. That's why I gave him this huge bow tie with huge ribbons that kind of curl in and out when he moves around. I thought that was a fun feature. I also made sure to extend the cat motif into the buttons and the cufflinks and of course his belt buckle. From what I've learned about character design, it's usually good to stick to 3 motifs, that way it's not overwhelming to look at. I'd say Project Cheshire has 3 motifs: stripes, spirals, and cat shapes. I think I did a pretty decent job of extending them all around the design. I think the only lack of these motifs are apparent in the shoes, but that's rarely seen in a VTuber model anyways. Speaking of his shoes, this is me rendering his pants now. And this is where one of the funnier asymmetry design choices came in. I just thought it would be kind of funny if one of his pant legs was pulled up just to show off his socks. Looking back at it, I kind of wish I made them look a little bit more fun. Darn, the ideas I have after the fact. But as you can see here, it was a pretty quick rendering process. It was just his legs. And last but certainly not least is that tail of his. This is a separate character on its own. One change to note is that I ended up simply reflecting that left eye to the other eye because it turns out that one on the right doesn't spin very well. When I was trying to rig the spinning, I was like, this looks crazy and crazier than it should, even though this is quite literally an animated tail. But with that, this is the fully rendered model. As I mentioned before, I have done a terrible job of remembering to open OBS while I'm in Live 2D. I only have a few snippets of where I was testing the physics that I recorded, so I'll throw that up here. As you can see, the physics window in Live 2D is very chaotic, especially if you have a lot going on. And honestly, compared to very complicated models that are out there, mine looks kind of simple. Speaking of physics though, I have to credit the tutorial that showed me how to make spinning physics. I'll link that down in the description below. It was honestly so useful. Now I'm going to walk you through an animation that I decided to do for this character. Usually when somebody buys or commissions a VTuber model, they're intending to become a content creator of some kind, usually a streamer. So I thought it would be fun to create an animation to be used as an overlay animation. So basically I wanted to create a start stream, BRB, and end stream overlay using the same animation. I was also really curious what it was like to animate in Live 2D. It was a lot more fun than I thought. You can animate and rig basically the same way you would do a model, but you can export it to be an animation instead. So as you can see in the speed paint, that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm separating the parts so that when I go into Live 2D, I can animate them individually in the larger scale of things. It felt about as complicated as it was to do the actual model, and honestly, there's a whole lot more that I have to learn about animating in Live 2D. I only ended up rigging the parts to breathe. Breathe is pretty self-explanatory when it comes to a VTuber model. You can basically animate your chest rising and falling to give the impression that you're breathing. Or in a lot of cases, move the model up and down steadily. It gives the same effect. So that's basically what I did for this animation. I hooked it up to breathe so it can constantly move back and forth. A lot of fun. I enjoyed it actually. It's something I want to do for myself and for future models as well. I figured giving a little bit of a starter pack with my Live 2D model could really help somebody out. It also gives me the chance to learn the program and build up my portfolio. As you can see, I had a lot of fun with the pose and making sure I got all the parts into place. I also went with a lot of glitch type effects. It doesn't have to be associated with Project Cheshire, but I just used it because I thought it looked cool. Kind of like a Looney Tune gone rogue and is disrupting all the TVs everywhere. And this right here is the final animation. I'm slapping a huge preview on it because this is technically part of the package. I really like the end result, and I especially like how the tail literally springs forward. It has an actual spring animation. Last but not least, I'll show you the emotes I designed. It's all part of that starter package. Every streamer needs some emotes, and while I debated to make these animated, I decided against it simply because of the time crunch I ended up being in. But I think these turned out super cute nonetheless. I felt they were all very in character. I especially love his little heart emote. He looks so smug giving that heart. And that's ultimately what I wanted Project Cheshire to be, a smug cat. And these were all the goodies that I added with the initial Live 2D model. And that, my friends, was the process behind Project Cheshire. It was a wild experience, but I'm so glad I was able to show you my process. This whole venture is such a new concept to me, but I'm having so much fun with it. I've always been so fascinated with character design, even as a little girl, so being able to share my designs with the world is kind of cathartic. I hope you enjoyed taking a little look into my creative process. As much as I enjoy sharing it, it is always a little bit nerve-wracking, but becoming a VTuber has definitely made me bolder in a lot of ways. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're interested in hearing me yap some more and watch me draw some more, then feel free to stick around. Bye-bye!